So I guess we can move on to the loose topic. And this
Yeah.
is a very interesting one that I kind of thought of because I saw an article post on IGN. And it's a term that we saw pop up before. And so I kind of wanted your thoughts about it. So Microsoft has tapped into top talent from Bungie and Crystal Dynamics to join its mysterious quadruple A studio, The Initiative. Now, obviously, the term quadruple A, or whatever you want to call it, AAAA, is most definitely obviously like a marketing strategy by Xbox saying we're making big experiences over here. So it's not necessarily meant to take most literally, but it's obviously that the industry is trying to move in a direction of scaling up from what we even what we consider to be AAA experiences, bigger than that, more money, bigger budgets, more people working on it. And so my question to you is, what are your thoughts about scaling up to this quadruple A experience going into next gen, that they want to make things bigger and quote unquote better? And do you think this is sustainable? Because obviously the AAA scene has a lot of issues that we've been bumping to. And as this industry ages, questions about unions and people being properly compensated and budgets and royalties and who's getting paid on the back end and unfair labor and all these practices in AAA gaming and crunch, for example, are massive things that are coming with the AAA game industry. As games get bigger and budgets get bigger and the amount of people who need to work on things get bigger and the amount of time they have to pour into these projects get bigger, but the deadlines remain the deadlines, there's a lot of issues with that. So with Xbox and theoretically the industry trying to up the ante and get even bigger, do you think this is a sustainable market? Can things keep going in this direction? So that's kind of my question to you. What do you think?
I think now more than ever, it's really put into question, because there's a fine line, and we've discussed it before, of, what is being crunched, what is being forced work, forced overtime, people getting their vacations canceled because they need them to be work, and where's their line of passion? Because Naughty Dog was getting, way prior to the Last of Us leaks and stuff like that. Just for an example, the rumors of crunch and stuff, and that's who leaked it. And it came out. Most people from Naughty Dog came out like, listen, we work a lot, yes, but it's because we want to. We have passion to. And that shows in their game, quality-wise. Same with Rockstar. You don't crank out Red Dead Redemption 2 by just working, your 8 to 5, 9 to 5 shift a day, and that's it. A lot goes into it. Now, I think so this was always a worry when I saw Microsoft come out and Microsoft's always trying to change the game with, quadruple A studios and stuff. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
There's AA, there's, it's not a thing. And it's really them just trying to stand out saying, we have so much talent here and we're going to produce something amazing. We haven't even gotten, I think there was like one small leak that they were, and I never believed that they're doing like a Perfect Dark reboot, and I highly doubt that, but I just don't think it'll be, let's say this game comes out, quadruple A. I even hate saying that. Quadruple A.
It's so clunky.
Yeah, quadruple A game comes out, and let's say it comes out and it's lukewarm. It comes out like most Xbox exclusives, that it's just kind of average. Then you're going to start being like, well, listen, you're paying these guys big bucks. You're pulling people from Crystal Dynamics, from Bungie. They just got a guy from an ex-Bungie runner to go join 343 because they're struggling creating Halo. So it makes me worry because not only our qualities of the games we get in our hands going to go down, what about the people who rely on this way more than us? People whose job it is to make these games spend tons of time, they lose time with family and all these things, and then the game comes out and it's lukewarm and people don't care and people don't want to sign you for the next project and they don't want you to, oh, what game did you work on? Like in a world that Halo Infinite comes out and it's like trash, and it's like, oh, and what what do you have on your resume? Oh, Halo 4, 5, and Infinite. Oh, it's gonna be rough. So it makes a very, obviously we're speaking as outsiders, but it's gonna make a very tough situation, especially when you put these standards of quadruple A. It's like, well, what does that mean compared to a triple A? Because triple A usually means high budget, high. It's just when you think triple A, you think motion cap and travels to Japan to get the right aesthetics and music and scenery and voice acting and all this different stuff. So I think and we're starting to already see that aspect where games are now starting to not everything's not trying to be AAA. Everything's not trying to be The Last of Us. We are starting to get these smaller games that people take longer to make, but they make it right the first time, in a sense, where we're not getting, because it's the wildest thing to when these AAA, AA games come out, and then it's like we need to patch it constantly to try to fix it before launch, and that's where I think a lot of crunch comes in. If Ghost of Tsushima came out and worked pretty well. I mean, there was very small glitches that they worked on pretty quickly, but if a game comes out broken and then you're starting to crunch, it just makes it weird, because it's like, well, there was rumors of crunching before, and there's always crunch is in existence in this industry. Again, as an outsider, it's part of the formula is that you have to really sit there and sometimes, crunch to an extent. Like, Nintendo doesn't get a lot of this heat, but there's a lot of like small stories that we haven't covered because they're really Nintendo's so tight-lipped that Nintendo really crunches for some of their games, and people don't really realize that. Animal Crossing apparently was one that was really, remember Animal Crossing was delayed almost a year.
Sakurai's been saying it for years.
Sakurai's
like they're killing me.
If you want to see an example of crunch, look at Sakurai. Every time he has to make this man's been making Smash Brothers for 20 years.
Damn near his whole life.
Oh my! And you can kind of look at him when he was producing like Smash, 64 and Melee. He's young, vibrant, and look at those directs when we get him now. He's like, "Hi, this is Min Min. She's got stretchy arms," and he tries to be enthusiastic, but that's crunch.
That's a tired man.
Because, he's like, yeah, we want to do a couple DLC. Well, now we're doing a second Fighters Pass. And that comes from Nintendo being like, Fighters Pass is making money. People want more substantial stuff. So there is a worry where at what point are you going from passion to forced crunch to putting your health in danger? Because even for Smash on through whatever the Smash 4 was called, 3DS and Wii U, I think Sakurai said he had to go to the hospital because he was like super dehydrated, and he's a man of a completely different passion and stuff like that. But there's people like that everywhere on both sides. On Microsoft team, there's people like on Sony team, and it's hard because some of these guys don't come out. But Neil Druckmann's not a guy who just works 40 hours a week and that's it. I don't know this, but he's a man of big passion. He's always there. He's always got his hands in everything. When it comes to Naughty Dog games, so I highly doubt he's just chilling, doing nothing. So you can only imagine the people on the floor doing like some of that grunt work are really pushing themselves. So my thoughts of scaling up doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense where I think some games need to scale down.
Yeah,
you need to make not smaller teams but smaller games. Everything doesn't have to be Cyberpunk. Everything doesn't have to be The Last of Us, The Witcher, with all this crazy things. Like, some games need to be scaled down, and that's what we've started to see with, and I gotta give it, to THQ Nordic to me that's a double A producer, because they produce everything pretty much. They own everything, but they're making these smaller $40 experiences that they're ready when they're ready. Destroy All Humans remake was announced, I want to say like a year ago. We got no info for a long time. And then they were like, here's the release date, the game's ready. And I think that, again, I don't know what that looks like behind the scenes, but you're not seeing people freak out. You're not seeing people come out and do these interviews where it's like, the pressure's too much. I haven't seen my family, and etc. So when you see that quadruple A aspect, it almost worries me more. And it's like, at what cost and at what product is that going to be released to,
Yeah, when I see quadruple A, some people could take that literally, but what that communicates to me is the general thought patterns of some of the higher-ups at these companies, that it's a war of escalation. Bigger, bigger, bigger. But with great expansion, naturally will come the great contraction. And the problem is blockbusters in these industries are always going to exist, whether the movie industry or anything. Every industry has their blockbusters. They're massive, expensive, big tentpole events that they have every year. However, I don't feel like the infrastructure is there for the game industry. If you want bigger experiences, you're going to need bigger pay to take care of these people. You're going to need bigger facilities to ensure that these people are able to see their families and maintain healthy lifestyles and stuff like that. And that's kind of where that unionization thing comes in. And then obviously there's pushback against that because certain developers are like, we can't afford this unionization kind of ecosystem that's coming. which is inevitable, whether you like it or not, whether you feel one way or another. The unions are coming, whether you like it or not, at least in the U.S. So it puts them in a position where it's like, do you want it bigger or do you want them better? Because, like, okay, you can get bigger and bigger and bigger experiences from your developers, and that's good and fine. But can you afford it? If you can't afford it to take care of your employees to do that bigger experiences, then let it go. Let it go, because it's not worth it. The taking advantage of these people and killing these developers and these testers and having these contractors come in and you're barely compensating them. And they're doing all this for the AAA experiences. So you're talking quadruple A. And again, if you think this is a kind of thing, Microsoft are the ones that are marketing it. But if you don't think that this thought pattern exists elsewhere, then you're being purposely ignorant. I mean, this is happening everywhere where they're trying to go into this next gen with experiences that it's like, oh, 100 million. Let's see what happens when we get the first $1 billion game. It's coming. And I could just only imagine the horror stories we're going to get out of that story. So it's like, all right, yeah. So I was just saying that I think quadruple A experiences may be able to exist at some point, but in this current war of escalation, you need AAA quality infrastructure to support, quadruple A quality games. So once payment is set up and once the budgets are finalized and people are compensated properly, that's when they can happen right now. But they're going to butt into an issue where 6 months of crunch, 8 months of crunch, like how much is acceptable, you know what I mean? Where to hit these levels of quality for these games and at these astronomical scales, it's just an impossibility because they're barely hitting it now. So I could only imagine if they tried to quadruple the size of the game, quadruple the size of the budget, how humans could even output this at the current, ecosystem allows to.
Yeah, and like you said, it comes down to payment and time off and people being able to be with their families. Remember, Borderlands 3 caused a big stir about this with what's this guy who shouldn't be on Twitter? Randy Pitchford, right? Is it Randy?
Oh yeah, that guy. Shut his mouth. He every time he opens his mouth, oh my god.
Took a huge bonus, and a lot of the workers were like, "Yo, we really had a because Borderlands did come out and it was well received. It was obviously years too late, but the game had a few issues that some people were like, yeah, we had to really try to. They're like, oh, this mechanic was like really broken, and we had to really crunch before the release because he went off script and announced that the game was supposed to come out way sooner, and it's different things like that. And then this is where I think like, well, union has to happen because like everyone who was developing that was being told you'll get the big bonus when the game sells, and some games do work that way where you have your salary and then you get the big chunk of money when the game comes out and sells well and stuff like that. But that's not necessarily the right thing to do, I guess, because people who worked on Borderlands 3, people who crunched for Borderlands 3, everybody knows Borderlands 3 released way too quickly and was rushed. And then they didn't get their pay later on. That's when, like, well, that union thing's gonna come, and I think it's inevitable because you have to. It's just because of situations like this. You can't tell me I'm gonna crunch given all this time and not get paid for it or get the respect for it, and it just breaks down to a way more complicated thing. And going bigger and bigger isn't the way to go, obviously, because it's gonna cause more stress, more problems, and bigger isn't always better. So when Microsoft really tries to change the game and flex their big muscles and we have a quadruple A studio, it's not a thing. Stop it. It's not a thing. And you're gonna look foolish when things start to fall apart in that aspect. And I think on a different note that like if Microsoft can't even get their AAA studios to the point they need to be comfortable, obviously there are issues with Halo Infinite and 343 is a studio you guys internally created to make Halo games, and they can't make Halo games the right way. You have other problems that you need to be focusing on instead of getting bigger and better.
Yeah, and kind of inclusion. Microsoft, I love you, Microsoft. I'm not hating.
No.
But try putting something out with the initiative first before saying they're a quadruple A studio. Because there's this thing called setting someone up for failure that you want to temper expectations. Slow down, Microsoft. They've never launched a game with that team yet. Exactly, so it's really bold to be putting that level of clout on them before we even know what their full capabilities are. And I have no doubt that there is no shortage of talent at that studio. I see some big names going over there, but slow down.
Yeah, and then they constantly talking about and Phil Spencer again, love love the guy from as a fan base, but he was there was that interview. He's like, they may be working on more than one game, and they're still
not a good idea.
I'm like, whoa, hold on, man. We have when that happens, something suffers to aspect another game, and so they have to be very careful.
Release something first.
Yes.
Just release something first, Microsoft.
Yep.
We understand you have 50,000 projects in development. You know who also had a whole bunch of projects in development? They're called DC, and ask them how that played out for them.
Yeah.
Release things.
I mean, look at original I was just giving props to THQ. Look at the original THQ.
Yeah.
They were releasing things left and right, and they had so many teams, and we get more games now than ever, but there was a time, PS2, PS3, where we were getting tons of garbage, let's be honest. It's because these teams were so thin and so small and forced.